Now we can switch over, talk about the Division III scene. Had two fantastic semifinal matchups, a lot more competitive maybe than the weeks prior. Jimmy, what we see, man?
So we saw the North Central Cardinals punch their third consecutive trip to the national
Yes, I
championship.
believe it actually maybe fourth. Obviously, the
Oof.
COVID season is a bit of
Yeah,
an asterisk there.
yeah, certainly. And Wartburg put up a very strong fight, but they just fell a little bit short in this one. 34-27, the final from Wartburg. Luke Lehnen, 222 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. What? Luke Lehnen threw a pick? Are you
Right?
kidding me?
Like
Yeah,
a
I was kind of
very
surprised. Yeah.
uncharacteristic stat there from Lehnen, who has been near perfect, and obviously he's joining us tonight as well. But even with that being said, the fact that it's crazy for that to even mention is something that's really sweet. The fact, I think myself watching, I got the chance, this is the best time of year is right now because you get to watch all the games because there's not a million different games to watch. So the fact that we're able to watch all these is awesome. He's able to make these throws, dude, and I'm sure you see them rolling out one way and throwing across his body. He makes these very long or very tough throws, appearingly very minimal effort. And it's really impressive to see him move around and extend plays.
Yeah, he's a heck of an athlete. He's got a great arm. I believe he has a history with baseball. I want to say he
Yes.
played at North Central for a bit as well. And that's probably why he's so good at throwing on the run, because you catch a fly ball in center field, you got to curl hop, throw it in. So,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah. And then obviously Joe Sacco had a hell of a game as well. 126 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and he's no stranger to finding the end zone and running for a ton of yards. I mean, he's been having games like this all year. I mean, this is not a surprise to anybody. And then Joey Lombardi also had a heck of a game. 4 catches, 161 yards, and 2 touchdowns for the fellow. And then, for Wartburg, Niall McLaughlin, pretty solid game himself. 234 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Hunter Klassen, 131 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns for him. So,
Yep.
like we said, Wartburg was a very formidable opponent, and they gave North Central maybe the best game they've gotten all year. Obviously, you could say lacrosse as well. But, this should not be a surprise that Wartburg kept this one close.
Not at all. And the fact that Wartburg came back from what was a pretty heavy deficit to come back and take the lead at one point, one, shows the strength and the quality of that kind of squad. But two, for North Central, if you're a North Central fan, you're a Cardinal fan, it's got to be super encouraging because these guys have not trailed. So to see them this far in the season, to finally face that adversity, if you will. There's so many other things that adversity-wise they've faced this year, but to finally be on the wrong end of the scoreboard for once, to bounce back and continue to play their kind of football, I think is super encouraging for that Cardinals squad. We saw a lot of these clips. Ben Sackler, I believe Ben, right? First name. He got going early. Joe, I'm sorry. He got going early, and I think that was kind of a question mark for me heading into this one. You see the special teams play getting going as well, but that front seven, that front defensively for Wartburg with that star-studded linebacker core, was North Central going to kind of play around these guys early? No, they went right at them out of the get-go. I think that's a super great confidence builder for that offensive line and that unit for North Central, and it certainly paid off. They controlled the pace of play for the most part in that first half especially.
Yep, certainly. And when you control the pace of play, you can do a lot of good things, as we saw. So,
absolutely, yeah. And then you talked about a lot of those individual performers. Almost 5,000 people there in attendance. This place was pretty packed. I know for Wartburg, that's a game that a lot of those guys might not be a part in another contest like that, which is sad to talk about. But that's North Central has been there. This felt like Wartburg's chance to really capitalize. And when you get up like that in the first half and you're able to kind of come back, a late score from North Central puts that one away. But, man, it's going to make this championship, I think, a lot more interesting than people are giving it credit for.
Oh, I certainly agree with you. I know I was talking to one of the North Central fans on Twitter this week about the games. I like to interact with the threads a little bit, so I know there's a lot of very confident North Central fans. Clearly,
yeah, and they have a right to be, obviously, right?
They
have a right to be after the way they've played.
Yeah,
100%.
So you said there was 5,000 people at that Wartburg North Central game, correct?
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong game. Sorry, 3,500. I was looking at
3,500.
I'm looking at Cortland Landroff Macon, which is closer to 45. So 3,500 people down there in Iowa.
And so I'm looking at the enrollment as of fall 2022. Wartburg has just over 1,000 students.
That's awesome, dude.
So
3 times the student body.
Yeah, that's wild stuff.
That's
man.
pretty cool.
That's
pretty cool. Yeah, there was a little bit of controversy. I don't know if you saw about the kind of press situation. Did you see any about that? Yeah, it was an interesting note. And I'll try and pull it up here for people that maybe didn't see it. But I think, there were some complaints about how the people were situated, the visiting media, if you will. But people also have to remember, and there's a great counter argument on top of it, that when ESPN and like the bigger productions come in to do these games, like this is not just the home team putting on another live stream. This is a nationally telecast game. So there's going to be a much larger and more involved crew. And I think that kind of goes unnoticed a lot of the times. There's so much else going on outside of just the white lines that could determine and make differences in a game like this. As I try to, I'll try and find the one thing they called it out. But it's been fun to watch these broadcasts, and not to, no discredit away from the teams that usually do them, but man, to have some people come on here, a little bit more production of the graphics and those kind of things. With that being said, could the commentators do a little more research on these two teams before they show up and call the game? I was kind of surprised at how little they really knew and how general the terminology and other things they were using during the contest. But maybe that was just me.
Yeah. I know a few guys that could maybe do that instead.
You think?
Yeah, maybe.
that would be something else, dude. I can't find it right now for whatever reason, the little setup. But North Central going into the championship game, I assume, for all those Cardinals fans like the ones that you had talked about, still have to be very confident, correct?
Certainly. As they should be, so.
Yeah, and that can here it is. I got it here, so I'll at least show the people that are watching at home here. So this was a view from inside the away from the media, and there was a little bit of controversy here. It says, if this game was at BW, everyone would have proper space in the press box. Instead, we're currently set to broadcast from the model dorm in an administration building on the other side of the field. This is straight up disrespectful, but the show must go on. So you can see the setup there, and Wartburg has a really cool setup because they have these dorms and things that have windows directly looking out onto the field. But I've called games before, Jim. This is not the most ideal place to be on the call. But one of the better quotes, like I said, did mention how there's other broadcasts and other people that come in and kind of take this over. And that is, by all means, probably not even Wartburg's decision. They take a lot of the equation, and there's just so much other things going on that make it a part of it. But we can switch over and talk about this Cortland-Randolph-Macon game if you want to, Bub.
So I, for one, did not see this one coming. I don't know about you.
No. But, I'd be lying if I told you I did.
Game being decided by 35 points is just mind-blowing, especially because the underdog, Cortland, was plus 3.5 going to this one, winning by 35 points. Certainly, I was a very big Randolph-Macon believer, as I'm sure a lot of the college football world was, but obviously Cortland, very, very tough football team, and they showed that on Saturday that they're here to play, and they're ready to play North Central. I have no doubt that they're ready to play them.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of times where I feel like teams took the field this year and they saw the Cardinals across from them, and they're like, holy shit, like, what do we do now? La Crosse was not one of those teams. Wartburg, obviously not one of those teams. Cortland will not be one of those squads. There is no fear factor with these guys, and there shouldn't be, right? As good as a squad like North Central is, what do the coaches always say? They always put their pants on one leg at a time, just like every other dude in the morning. But you talk about this Randolph-Macon team coming off the explosive performance at Johns Hopkins. Now they get to host it over there in Virginia. And the rushing attack for the Yellow Jackets we've seen has been a huge calling card of their offense. And we talk about determining the pace of play. They didn't do that at all. See the special teams going here, a big-time punt return for the Red Dragons that was critical early in the first quarter. But, dude, going into halftime, 35-0. I don't care what kind of running game or rushing attack you have, and they've got a great quarterback over there in Campanale, but it takes it out of the equation. You make the offense one-dimensional. You see you getting pressure here in Campanale in the backfield, already up 14-0. And this game, I think, was just the epitome of a slippery slope.
Yeah. That's just tough, especially when you build your identity on the run game and you don't even run for 100 yards. Like, you're going to have some trouble scoring points.
There was someone wearing the red and white out on the outside who had quite the day. How about him? The man.
Yeah, Cole Bridges. 12 catches, 145 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He is my Division I Player of the Week. I think that is a very appropriate choice. You can chime in if you don't believe so, but I think we'd give him the award this week.
Dude, he was balling. You see one of his 3 touchdowns there, and he showcased a little bit of everything. Really big catch radius. He's able to get that down, get some yards after the catch, and then you see the balance, the way he's able to spin off the tackle right here and get into the end zone. Again, that was one of only 3 on the day for him, and we've talked a lot about J.J. Lapp, the other weapon offensively for them on the outside. Another team that just has weapons across the board. If one is not having the best day in the world, you can bet your ass and a little bit more that another guy is going to step up. And behind it all, boys under center for them has just been an absolute facilitator. The run game from them with Jaden, Fano St. John, like I could just go, right? Like this unit has come together so cohesively at the right time, and getting hot right now in the playoffs is probably the best thing you could ask for from this team, man.
Oh, absolutely. And if they want to win next week, Jaden Alfano St. John's going to have another great game, as he went for 108 and 2 touchdowns last week. So they're going to need to establish the run game early and often against North Central if they want to have a chance to win. And then obviously boys also had a great game, 279 yards, 3 touchdowns. All of them were thrown to our boy Cole Bridges.
Massive.
If I was Zach Boys, I'd probably throw to him a lot too. So.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, absolutely, man. And looking back at the stats from the Johns Hopkins game, you look at the rushing attack from the Yellow Jackets. Mitchell Johnson went for 144 and 2 tuds. That was his breakout game. Cortland holds him to 24 yards on 8 carries. Now, he did not have the same volume, obviously, out of the backfield, but still, to limit him and the explosive plays, that's what we saw against the Blue Jays, is a couple of them. When you have someone like that who's running the ball so much, they get into that rhythm. All it takes is one play here or there, and they're going to bust it eventually. Cortland never let that happen. They limited the explosive plays. That's what they're going to have to do this weekend, right? Because we've seen North Central, I think the best example of it, that 14-point swing at UW-La Crosse, punch the ball out of the end zone, goes from a touchdown to a touchback, and the next play, 80-plus yard touchdown from Sacco. And North Central is able to capitalize on those explosive plays. If you're Cortland's defense this week, that's what you're preaching. And you're not changing your game plan, I feel like, too much. But, man, limit the explosive plays, and you have a really good shot to be in this one.
Yep. And if we're talking keys to the game, similarly to how the lacrosse recipe for a potential victory against North Central, if Cortland does not turn the ball over, I think they're going to win the game. But they cannot turn the ball over. That's the only way they can win this one. I think there's some other ways potentially as well. I shouldn't say the only way, but the most important factor in this one is being able to limit the turnovers to none, and obviously controlling the ball and running the ball effectively.
Yeah. Absolutely, dude. And I think worth mentioning as well, that Wartburg defense, man. I mean, people have talked about Owen Grover a lot this year in that linebacker core, but there were some other like really star-studded dudes that I think made a name for themselves this playoff run for the Knights over there, and they certainly will be back in this position, maybe not all the way to the semis, but they're going to be certainly fighting for this kind of spot. Next year, they're returning a lot, but they do graduate some pretty key players. Defensively, though, it felt like those guys were in there in just about every single play. I watched this one until about the third quarter, then I had to take off. I had some other obligations, but those linebackers, man, felt like they were in there on every single play.
Yeah, and that would be a pretty good assessment because prior to the game against Wartburg, North Central had not allowed under 40 points, and they'd only allowed under 50 points twice. So Wartburg was up to the task, holding them to only 34, which has not been done all year by any other defense that has been defending against North Central. So obviously you got to tip the cap to Wartburg, one of the best defenses in the country, and they showed it on Saturday. So
now, does that affect, I mean, again, who gives a shit because they still got to play the game, but does that affect your spread or your kind of projections heading into Saturday's matchup, coming off a incredible offensive showing, and even though it was still a good offensive showing, technically the worst of the year for the Cardinals?
Yeah. I believe I put out North Central minus 13.5 against Cortland. I might drop it down to 13 or maybe 12.5 just because I was so impressed with Cortland's offensive output. But again, North Central has covered the spread in all but 2 games all season, and they're the last 2 games this year that they played. So they are yet to cover a spread since the second round. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I don't have a spread pick, but I do believe North Central will win the national championship.
Back to back. Be interesting, man. Now, looking at the offense and how they match up with North Central, I know we saw they've got some veteran guys on the outside, the North Central does, but looking at that lacrosse game, I know that we got to watch in person, and even a little bit of this most recent matchup. I feel like their outside defensive secondary wise has been exposed a little bit these last couple games when you get good talent on the outside, guys like Studer, who we watched in person, and a couple other dudes over there from lacrosse. And I'm very curious to see now, looking at this Cortland squad, where you're not really allowed defensively to key in on one guy. They can't take all their resources and allocate them towards JJ Lapp or towards Burgess or these other guys because you're going to get cut up in other different directions. How do they manage that when there's not only one or two? You're not, and again, no discredit to the rest of the lacrosse offense. You're not just defending Kaiser Helterbrand and Jack Studer. You have across the board, this feels like a much more balanced offense than maybe the one they saw these last couple weeks. How do they manage that when you can't key in on one star player?
I don't know. I have no idea. To be honest with you, I don't. You'd have to ask the defensive coordinator for Portland.
Yeah, I probably,
Because Wartburg did a really good job last week of limiting D'Angelo Hardy, who we know is one of the best players in the entire country. He only had 4 catches last week.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but obviously, it's gonna be tough to hold him to that kind of a game again. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. We'll see what that.
I think part of it too. You know, you think about it, we talk about how many consecutive trips these guys have made to play in this exact game. I can tell you how many trips Cortland's made in that same time span the last 5 years, right? Like it's a very different feeling, I would assume. I didn't get the chance to play in that kind of atmosphere. I know you haven't either, but a team like this where you have a whole class of guys that know nothing basically but going at least to the national championship, if not winning the whole damn thing, compared to a Cortland squad that has never been in this situation before. Obviously, positives and negatives to both, but I imagine that plays a huge part in this thing for North Central.
You would be correct. You would be correct in that.
Yeah, but yeah, man, I think that's, nothing too crazy to recap or preview about it, but I'm super excited. I think this is going to be something where we find out very early in this one exactly how the pace and what this game is going to dictate offensively for both these squads. Is it going to be an actual shootout, or is it going to be a little bit more of a stingier competition? I think the difference in this one is special teams. You saw Cortland get the big special teams punt return for the touchdown here against Randolph-Macon, and then you look at against lacrosse, when North Central was maybe struggling a little bit more than they're used to, what got them out of it? The special teams play, I think, was massive. So whoever has, I think, the first big special teams play that kind of determines the possession or even a score of the game, I'm giving them a heavy edge. North Central, I definitely would have to ride with as far as my pick going into this one. A lot can change between now, Monday, and Saturday when we're recording this thing. But I would agree with you. I think I would take them to win this one, but we shall see, my friend.
We will. We will see.
I'm excited about it, though. I think that's all I got for you, Jim. It's been a relatively quick one, but all the stuff we need to know, man.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I will see you, brother, and I'll talk to you, obviously, before the game on Saturday. Joining us tonight from the D3 scene, this man, he's playing for it all on Saturday. He's led his Cardinals on yet another undefeated season up to this point. Looking to keep it going, the quarterback for North Central, Luke Lehnen. What's up, man? How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm pumped, brother. I'm pumped. It's good to have you on here. We've talked a lot about you on this particular show. Have yet to be graced by your presence on this show. It's about time. It's overdue is actually what it is.
I'm just happy to be on here. Thanks for the opportunity.
We got is it a playoff mustache or an all-the-time mustache that we're rocking?
Oh, it's playoff only. I don't rock this outside of the playoffs. So
I think I didn't notice until maybe like the Trinity game when I was watching that, and they cut to a close up, and I was like, oh, I didn't know if that was a thing or not. I love it, dude.
Strictly playoffs.
I love it. No, rock it with confidence, dude. But you guys have a lot of confidence, obviously, because you've been in this situation before. Your 4th consecutive trip, maybe not you in particular, to the Stag Bowl for the Cardinals. You only is italicized in my little rundown here, your 3rd trip to the national stage. Damn near it's got to be an exception or, expectation at this point for you guys, man.
Yeah, it's definitely one of our goals. I mean, it's everybody's goal every year, but we have different goals set. One, of course, to win a conference championship, but then that next step is to win a national championship, which we were lucky enough to do last year. But yeah, Stag Bowl is definitely an expectation for us. Of course, we had to work our way up to it, but definitely something that we expect to get to by the end of the year.
I mean, you guys have certainly had to work your way up to it. You look at this year's run compared to even last year's run, and it's not a disservice, I think, to talk about, any of the teams you played last year, but let's be honest, a lot of those games were not nearly as competitive as the contests we've seen here the last couple weeks when you look at Wartburg and Lacrosse and some of these other games. But the common denominator in all these is that you guys have found a way to win. So talk about, I guess, what's different about this year, and I'm assuming being on the road for the majority of it's got to be a big portion of it.
Yeah, being on the road was a little different, especially when you're going to play those top caliber teams like Lacrosse and Wartburg. Uh, I mean, home games are nice just so you don't have to travel and do all that stuff,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make too much of a difference. I know Wartburg made a little bit of difference just because of their student section behind the end zone for sure, just
Okay.
being loud, hard to communicate sometimes just because they were screaming so much. But yeah, this year, compared to last year, just not having that home advantage all the time, and like you said, maybe playing a few tougher teams than we did in past years. But yeah, nothing that we weren't prepared for.
Yep.
We knew when we saw the opening quad, like the seating for the bracket, and we saw the quadrant we were in and who we'd have to face in the future if we did continue to win. And we knew it was gonna be a battle, but like I said earlier, nothing we weren't prepared for. I knew that the guys that we have, like I'll take them any day over anybody else.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I was confident that we'd make it through. I just knew it'd be more of a battle than years prior.
Hey, I got to see Gerard and them boys, that front five up in person there when we come down to Lacrosse, and I'd run behind them. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
wouldn't be picky about that. So I hear you, man. But how is the mindset changed for you guys, if at all, this year? Again, when we talk about comparing it, because you guys can't exactly claim the underdog role, I don't think quite yet. But I would imagine still just another chip or two to add onto that throwing shoulder of yours.
Yeah, I think it's more of a chip on our shoulder. Just when we saw we weren't a one seed in our quadrant,
Yeah.
being like defending national champions, not being able to have that home field advantage. Definitely a chip on our shoulder. We didn't let it uh, have too much of an effect on us just because we were just focusing on, hey, it doesn't matter where we'll play, who we're playing, we'll play you anywhere. Just our goal is just to get the job done in the end. So we didn't let it play like a huge part in our playoff journey.
No, absolutely. And that, at least to me, watching you play, which I've gotten to do a little bit now over the course of this year, feels like kind of the way that you play. You're not a guy that's going to be this roller coaster of emotions throughout a contest. Try to stay even keel for those guys, and every play you kind of approach the same. With that being said, you make a big play, you got a little bit of swagger to you out there.
Yeah, I like to show some emotion
Yeah.
after big plays. Just get the boys going. Celebrate with my guys on the sideline
Hmm.
or Ethan Greenfield. He helps coach. He was on the team with me 3 years before he graduated, but
Yeah.
just seeing him, he's one of my really good friends. Just celebrating with him, coming off the field, and all the other coaches and teammates I have. It's fun getting to do that with the guys.
Absolutely, dude. There's a balance there, right? Because as the quarterback, obviously you can be the catalyst for a lot of that energy and that excitement, but also there's certainly times, like we talk about, of trying to be that level-headed, that cool, calm, and collected. You do a really good job of that. But let's talk about that Wartburg game. You obviously knew going into that one going to be a great contest. Talk about the defensive side over there for that Knights defense, man. The linebacker core, a lot of people had talked about, and just the whole game, I think in general was built up to be this almost pseudo national championship because the expectations for the other side of the bracket have been different since Mount Union got knocked out. But going into that one, you guys obviously, it was just as competitive as it chalked up to be. They take a late lead, and I wanted you to talk about the adversity you guys faced there because it's not something you faced a lot in recent history. So got to be a really encouraging piece to see your squad rally behind and not be phased.
Mhm. Yeah, we knew coming into that game that they were going to be really physical. They had Owen Grover at Mike linebacker,
Hell yeah.
one of the best in the nation, if not the best linebacker in the nation at our level. But we knew they were going to be physical, and even when we got up on them 20-0, we knew they were going to be a team that stays in the game and fights and claws back. We knew they weren't just going to roll over and die. We knew we had to stay on our game, keep our foot in the gas, and we did slip up in the third quarter. I think We almost had like 5 straight 3-and-outs, I think. Mostly due to me making some bad decisions, but besides that, once we did start to trail, it was good to see how our guys responded. I think that's important. Of course, you don't want to be in that moment where you are trailing. Like
Yeah.
nobody likes to trail, but you do learn some lessons from it. Just seeing our guys respond, offense and defense. Zach Orr making a huge play, getting that
Oh yeah.
interception, got the momentum going. I know I was sitting on the sideline by the heater, uh, kind of like this is hard to watch. Like we're kind of struggling on offense. Like something's got to change, and then next play, Zach Orr makes the interception. I'm jumping around, sprinting onto the field, like, okay, let's go. This is our chance to. This is what we needed. So, so yeah, just trailing late in the game like that, just seeing how our guys respond and learning how to overcome adversity like that was definitely important for us.
Hey, better late than never as far as when it comes to some of those lessons, man. And yeah, that was obviously a huge one. And reading the box score to see a turnover from your guys' end, I thought was a mistake maybe by the SID. Found out no, it was not. No, but I watched the game. But you extending the plays back there has become, I think, an even larger part of your game. Much in part to the fact that your offensive line is quite literally the personification of a wall. They give you a good amount of time back there. Even when you do have pressure, it's coming off the edge. You're well aware of it. You're able to get out of there and make plays. How do you simulate a lot of that in practice? Because, man, Jimmy and I were talking, those throws that you're making on the outside, you're making look effortless, maybe thrown across the body. I know there's a couple OCs maybe getting a little squeamish on those, but damn it, you make it work, dude.
Yeah, I know like my dad always growing up, he always told me never throw the ball back across the middle late. So I'm sure he was also acting like OCs around the country and they saw it. But yeah, it's really just like we practice the way we play. We practice scrambling during practice. Our coaches set us up in bad situations. Like if we have a certain protection and they bring a blitz that we can't pick up just simply because we don't have enough people,
Yeah.
we put in our practice plan so that when a game comes, it's not something we haven't seen before. So that one where I did throw across the middle, I saw the guy coming up and I knew we didn't have anybody for him, just the way our protection was set. So I knew I was gonna have to beat him on the outside. But yeah, it's just stuff that we practice and happens in the game uh, every so often. So nothing that I haven't seen before. So it's almost like second nature, but we do practice it a lot. And our receivers do a really good job of knowing when to find the open space in the defense or knowing when I'm going to start running and then start to block people. So our guys do a great job with the scramble drill.
Yeah, switching into that, and you talk about those guys on the outside when it clicks for them, and they either get up, get out, come across the field with you, or like you said, turn around and get hands on a body downfield. That's I think an underrated trait of a lot of receivers, of that knowledge and I guess game sense of knowing when and where to do that and how to approach that. You being able to build up the rapport with a lot of these guys over the last couple of years certainly helps you guys in that area. But moving on to Cortland, you're going to watch a lot of film on their defense, I'm sure. I'll tell you firsthand that offense has been dialing some shit up here the last couple weeks. Looks like maybe a little bit of a fireworks show on Saturday.
Yeah, they're definitely hot right now. Just looking at their past 2 weeks that they've had, their offense looks great on film. Just seeing like some of the highlight videos. I don't get all the offensive film, and
Yeah.
I'm not spending time looking at that. But like over the weekend, I looked at a couple of highlight videos of them, and yeah, they got some explosive dudes, receivers, really fast guys. Their quarterback has been phenomenal in this postseason. But yeah, I think it should be a really good game. It's exciting that it's like their first time getting to play in the Stag Bowl.
Yeah.
So they'll definitely have some fire. They're not going to back down. They're not going to give up. Their defense is tough. They have a tough defense. Got some good linebackers, some D linemen that we'll have our eyes on. But yeah, it should be a good game.
Nothing you haven't seen, obviously, as far as the defense is concerned. And when you talk about that offense, not the first high-powered one you guys have taken on. I think I go back to that dismantling of Trinity, who, by all means, was a very quality football team. They came up there to Illinois, and your defense had a day with that and forced a lot of really uncharacteristic turnovers for a guy like Horn back there that has been super efficient all year. And then you go to lacrosse, where Helterbrand, Studer, those kind of guys, you're able to obviously not take them out of the game, but bend, don't break. And they make some of those major plays in the red zone to slow things down. So, again, not the first time you guys have have faced something like that. And obviously, going into this one, they're going to be dialing up all kinds of pressures because that's what it comes down to, is getting you off schedule and trying to make those errant throws. But it'll definitely be fun to watch. But you alluded to it. That's what I wanted to talk about, is the fact that you guys have quite literally been there, done that, and they have not. And that's just the kind of the simple fact of it. What does that do playing into this? And I guess, what do you remember about your first experience playing at this level on the national stage?
Going to my first experience, I definitely was nervous.
Sure.
I feel like everybody gets nervous for every game, but I feel like my freshman year is maybe a little bit of a different nervous, just because last game of the year, national championship, going into undefeated, you want to win so bad, especially for like your fifth year seniors that come back. But definitely seeing like I've definitely learned a lot from that first game. That first game was not the best game I played. It's probably one of the worst ones I had. So I definitely learned a lot of lessons from that. And I feel like I've grown over time. And I think the experience of having those long seasons every year that I've been here,
Yep,
getting to the last game, that definitely helped me grow and mature. For them, just being like the first year they've been there, like I said earlier, they're going to be on fire all the time. They're not going to give up, like I mentioned. No matter like what the score is, like if it's close, obviously they're going to be in it. If it's not close, they're still going to be in it.
yeah.
I know they'll probably travel well too. Their fans are going to be involved in the game. But yeah, it should be a really great atmosphere. But yeah, I definitely think experience helps. But at the same time, going up against a team we've never played before or that has never been at that stage can sometimes be like unpredictable, maybe in a
Yep.
sense. Just not knowing how they're going to respond to things or like what certain things are going to draw up to run in the championship, stuff like that. So
Absolutely, man. Yeah, you talk about that fire they're going to come out with, and it certainly has, at least following you guys the last couple of years, it certainly has felt like there may have been a couple people here or there, a couple teams that come out into the field and they see you guys and kind of just like, man, like today, you know what I mean? And obviously these last few weeks have not been that. I'm certainly not expecting that Saturday. And you know exactly the challenge that's coming ahead of you. You're on it. You're on it with the answers. But I think what makes it actually a little more interesting and maybe potentially more difficult from the prep side of things is I don't think you guys had any common opponents, correct?
no, yeah, I don't think we've played anybody that they've played.
Yeah.
Well, we played Ithaca last year in the playoffs,
Okay.
but
Yep.
that was last year. That's the only team I believe that we've had any sort of crossover with.
Yeah, and that makes things a little bit more interesting because I know I talked with Chuck Bittner earlier from DJFootball.com, and the Mines Harding matchup, they at least had both played Grand Valley in really close contests earlier this year, and that would probably be the one game you go back to because you're getting a great look at how they respond to different things against the same kind of front and style. But I think that certainly makes things interesting. Now, you guys aren't playing the flex bone in the championship, so it's a little bit different. But I gotta imagine your game plan is, while you will have, I'm sure you boys are gonna have some stuff up your sleeve. This is certainly the stage to pull it out. A lot of the same, man. Do what you do and what you do best.
Yep, it should be a fun one. Our offense should be hopefully doing what we normally do.
Oh, yeah.
But
Love it. Love it, man. What's the, I know it's early still this week, but what's the message to the boys right now? It's probably a lot in the same. You know what the expectation is. Now go and do it.
yep, just go do it. Do it for the guy next to you, especially the fifth year seniors.
Yep.
They put a pause on their life to come and play another year for us. So might as well do it for them.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Thank you, dude. I told you I'd keep it relatively quick. I appreciate you. Been a fan of yours. Glad we could finally get you on here. I'm looking forward to tuning into that game Saturday, seeing you and Cardinal Company get going.
Appreciate you having me on here.
Absolutely, Luke. Have a good one, brother.
You too.
See ya.